know who to contact in case something ever happens to them.
But you didn't pay any of those guys to do that, huh?
Oh, no, they pay to be part of the reenactment.
They pay to come down here and have fun.
Yes.
Something.
Yes. Well, it helps offset the cost because it does cost a lot to put on a reenactment. And it helps because they use a lot of firewood and a lot of hay and just the different things that we need for the reenactment, such as the black powder. They get a black powder allotment for coming.
Oh, y'all supply the black powder?
We provide a small amount.
Okay.
For them for coming.
There's no guarantees out here, even in a reenactment. There's no guarantee that everything's going to be perfect.
No. It's 1,000 times better than it has been in the past.
Okay.
I'd have to say that. When I first started, we usually had an incident, maybe two. Took off the side of his nose, side of his face, his
what was
neck.
it they were shot?
It was an artillery piece.
Really?
And it actually, I've seen him since, and he's black with scars from this side of his face where it caught him on the side of his face. So
and what distance was he away from the...
He was probably 20 feet,
Okay.
20, 25 feet.
Okay.
And it wasn't pretty to see that happen.
Oh, boy, just like that.
Yeah, we were coming over the hill. He comes flying back on us. One guy down at Vicksburg doing the ramrod. You do it with your hands like this. He did it like that.
Oh, okay.
And when he did, the charge went off.
Okay.
And it blew the ramrod out, and we were doing a cavalry charge across the front, probably as far as from here to that sign.
Yeah.
He landed on me and my horse.
He did, or the ramrod?
He did. The ramrod went past me. I saw the ramrod go past me. Then I was going to go chew somebody out because there was supposed to have been nothing in the tubes.
Yeah.
And when it came over and his hat flew past me, I turned, and when I turned my horse, there he was. Bam! He hit me. He was probably, luckily he was about 250 pounds or better.
Oh, my.
Good-sized man. Hit me, rolled my horse over. He was unconscious for probably 2 hours.
Wow.
And the paramedics revived him. And luckily, he was a big enough man that when he hit it, the blast blew him completely out of the parapet onto my horse.
And what distance you figure that was?
25 feet.
Okay.
But see, he had a hold of the ramrod, and he didn't let go. See, you hold it this way, you'll lock up.
Oh,
You have to hold it like that so it'll blow out of your fingers.
There you go.
And if it goes off, it'll go that way. But he had it apparently like this, and when he went in there to charge the round must have had an ember in there, because they probably didn't swab it quick enough. And when he went to put the charge in, bam, it went off.
That being as close as you were, that wasn't supposed to be going on.
No, they were going to clean it out or do something with it, and it was in between firing. We'd arranged it that they'd do their volley, then we'd go in front of the parapets and run the other cavalry off, and it wasn't supposed to happen. I mean, we used to use ramrods, and they would fire the ramrods and get excited, put the round in, and then fire it in the hurry of 5-second drill of loading, and actually fire the ramrods out. Yeah, and it'd stick in a tree. I was next to a drummer in Tennessee with a ramrod actually through the drum.
No kidding.
Missed his leg just barely.
Oh, Lord.
So we no more ramrods on the battlefield.
So
that was back in the 70s.
How did they load them things then now?
They just pour the powder in, bounce it on the ground, fire it.
Oh,
They do not take the ramrods to the battlefield with them.
Oh, okay.
And even with us, with our pistols, I've got a stick. I'll stick it down the barrel. I'll stick it down the cylinders. Gettysburg, we had a guy from France, fired a round, had a bullet in it. The guy had used it for live fire. And the bullet was lodged in the barrel, and when he fired it at the reenactment, not knowing there was a bullet in there, it came out and shot another man through the neck.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think that's still in litigation.
Okay.
There's one cylinder didn't go off, so I'm going to try to get it to fire before we go home, or I'll just have to decap it.
It didn't go off consistently, or just didn't go off one time?
This pistol had a little moisture in the barrel, and it had several. It didn't go off right away, and it's the one left that won't go.
So now those actual deals, you have to load individual ones?
Right. You load them, the powder in each cylinder, and then the shot. And then after you get that packed, you have to cap it and make sure we have the fire that goes through the nipple of the cylinder, and they don't, weather like this, they don't always go off.
Okay.
So I'm going to try. Fire in the hole! And it didn't.
Yeah.
So why do you do this? Why do you get involved in all this?
Well, part of it's ancestral. My ancestors, I've had them infantrymen. I had two uncles, or two great uncles that fought at Shiloh. I've got their medical records and everything where they were shot and wounded at Shiloh. One of them disappeared after Shiloh, but he ended up back in Searcy, northwest Arkansas. And my great-great-grandfather, Armstrong, was adjutant for the military at Pea Ridge. He started here. He was an Indian agent, and he was commissioned a battlefield commission in the some Indian wars out west, captain. He was a federal captain, and he originally fought with the Federals at Manassas. And then after Manassas, he resigned, came back up here and worked as an adjutant, and then he was made colonel of the 3rd Louisiana when their colonel was killed at Pea Ridge.
Really?
And then he was with them all the way down through Helena, and then he was put in charge of the cavalry. Then he was made a major general, cavalry of the Tennessee. After that, he fought at Iuka, Shiloh, several of those battles.
So he fought on both sides?
Yes, he fought on both sides.
I love it. What kind of time does it take for a cavalry guy to be involved in this?
A lot. We do our research on our units that we're with and the men that we portray, especially if we're doing a living history. It took me about first 5, 6, 7 years to get all my equipment together, because I just didn't go out and buy it. I mean, I just found a saddle, had a horse. You find your parts, and then you finally put it together. Some people just go out and just, if they can afford it, buy everything they need, and you can just start riding. But we require everyone to do a lot of research.
Why is that so important?
Well, we do the living histories. People, what we do out here, we find out a lot of things that's not in the history books. People's personal letters that they have from their families. One of the guys that rode with me, his girlfriend had all of her great-grandfather's documents. He was the adjutant for a battalion in Mississippi. She had all of his papers in her trunk. So we were able to read all their letters, everything. He was meticulous about all of his details. He was a full colonel, and he was very good, and he had very good penmanship. So we read things in there about the battles that you don't normally read. And I fought in Vietnam. Did a couple of tours in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
And the guy standing next to me might see a whole different part of the battle than I would if I was looking in this direction. And the Confederate soldiers were no different. Some guys wrote about camp life and how boring it was. Other guys talked about, riding in the cavalry for days and nights and never seeing the enemy. We'd see the enemy and not engage. The guys in Helena, they were sending letters back and forth when Helena was under siege. The Confederate soldiers who had families living in Helena, they actually went home late in the evening, stayed at home. And I've got letters and stuff and notes that some of my writers, who parents still have them, told about it. How they snuck through the lines, through the trees, up through the valley, and rejoined the cavalry unit, which is on the other side of the town.
Is that right?
And actually told them how to get back through there. And of course, when they ended up getting pinned down by the artillery from the battleship, or the ship that was out in the Mississippi River that was firing on Tyler.
What is the adjutant? What they do?
They kept the records. That's your adjutant. I have an adjutant. He does all our research. They do your paperwork. We'll turn in to the first sergeant adjutant how many men we have, how many horses we have, how much food we have, how much hay we have. We do that still, and that way they put it all together. So an adjutant for a battalion was on staff, and he kept all the records of the men. When they got paid, if they didn't get paid, when they came in, and a lot of them were on a 6-month or 3-month rotation.
Okay.
So they'd be losing men and coming in and out constantly. Okay. So it's really hard to know the exact numbers sometimes of some units. Dobbin's Brigade that we're part of had actually 800 men, but hardly ever fielded any more than 600.
Okay.
And I've got most of their companies and their rosters, and it changed quite a bit.
Is this important for the average American to understand?
Well, it's an American history. That's the way I look at it. I do both Southern and Northern, and it's American history that we've stopped talking about. and it has nothing to do with black or white or any of those other things. It has to do with states' rights, politicians getting involved, and the government and saying this is what we want to do in our state, this is what we want to do for federal government. We still do that now. But it's important that a lot of people understand what some of these men went through. They weren't slave owners. Very few, as documented, were slave owners. They were here fighting for a cause that they felt that they were being invaded. And it's almost the same thing now in any cultural problem that we have. We feel like we're being invaded. And that's gone on for how many thousands of years since there was men walking around.
Do you think we're constantly looking for just the easiest answer, that we want the simple, well, it's a black-white issue, instead of realizing that there are complex issues and actually thinking through those, doing some critical thinking? Is that what's happening today? We don't do the critical thinking anymore, and we don't want to...
We want a quick fix. It's just like the TV remote that we have now. Click, click, click. We just get bits and pieces, and we don't want to sit down and study the history. Kids that come out and do this in the buses and what have you, they get to see some of the real-life things that goes on, or equipment, sleeping out in the cold. They get to learn those things and learn those facts. We don't want it anymore. We just want a simple answer, north versus south, and that's the end of it.
Okay. Well, I sure appreciate your time.
The Prairie Grove Battlefield Historic State Park was first developed by the Daughters of the Confederacy, who organized the Prairie Grove chapter in 1906 with the goal of preserving this area from the Battle of Prairie Grove. And by 1908, they had raised enough money to purchase 9 acres of the battlefield. And they are the ones who really started the formation of the battlefield. And they had it to have reunions of Civil War veterans and just different civic activities here. And then they and the Lions Club ran volunteer-based the museum in the park here until the state started helping with a commission that was over to help assist with running of the battlefield. But then it was taken over by state parks in 1971. And then from then on it's become a state park, and we've been a state park since.
So this building that we're in right now, how old do you estimate this building to be?
Since the 60s. This is a General Hindman's visitor center, and in the early years this was used as an open-air, closed-in pavilion. There used to be a fountain in the middle, and when the state acquired the building, they turned it into a museum. And so when we did, we always have to leave a statue of General Hindman and his picture. And one day, we hope to have a new visitor center, and then this is going to become the archives and records building.
Tell me about some of the unique structures in this park.
Well, a lot of the structures were moved in here by the Daughters of the Confederacy and the Lions Club to memorialize the area. The brick wall and the memorial tower came from the local area. The memorial tower came from the mill, Lee's Mill, which was an area where a lot of cavalry action happened about, which is just a little bit west of here in Prairie Grove. And it was moved here on site for a memorial. And then we have the Morrow House, which is another crucial house where soldiers, officers from the Civil War stayed in, and they had it for meetings, staff meetings. And it's on the property, and it's inside of the brick wall, or the stone wall, that's part of the memorial part of the park. And then we have the Latta Barn, which we've used today as a rental facility, but it was used as a barn with the Latta plantation. We have the Latta House, and the Latta House and barn and Spring House all came from that one location where the Lattas lived, and it had significance because General Hindman used it during the battle. We also have a one-room log structure to represent a kitchen, and then we have a smokehouse structure in the area. Then we have a dog trot building, a schoolhouse, and a church house. And then we have a blacksmith shop and a sorghum mill. The Prairie Grove Battlefield State Park is open daily from dusk to dawn for people to walk the trails and see the sights and go on the driving tour. Hindman Hall Visitor Center is open 8 until 5 every day of the week. We have a self-guided driving tour that you can do with the brochure or with the $4 driving tour CD. We also have a walking tour that you can do with the brochure. We also offer free battlefield tours throughout the day, and we also offer house tours throughout the day. they can contact the park for more information.